show you how to do how to create an application that uses two screens using iOS and Swift. So I've created my new application. I call it Segues V. The seg part of it is going to be clear in a second. Now, if I go to my main storyboard, my application will have the following. I have my view controller right here. What I will do with this is I'm going to create a little text field here. I'll put a text field from the object browser in here right in the middle. Let's resize it so it's big. All right, that's my text field. I'm going to put a button here that's going to have the words say hi. And what am I going to do with this? I will type say my name here. I'll tap on say hi, and then a new screen will actually greet me and say hello something. So if I type Bill and tap on say hi, a new screen will come up and say hello Bill. So I created the first screen, great. And it's very important to notice that this screen is governed by this viewController.swift right here. Now, I'm going to create the second screen now. And to create a second screen, I'm going to leave a little room. To create a second screen, I use what's called a view controller from the object browser here. So a view controller right there. I put it right there. So I'm going to move it closer to the other one. There, oops, not too close. But the idea here is the following, right? Is that I have one view controller, and when I tap on say hi, I'm going to go to this other screen. Okay? To create that action, what I will need is called a seg between these two scenes of my storyboard. So I will click on say hi and then control drag it to this other view and let go. This prompts me to create a seg. I will create a show seg. It's the simplest of segs. There it goes. You will see a little arrow that indicates that from this screen I go to this one, okay, for some event. And in this screen here I'm going to have a label, right, that will say hello whatever I typed on the name box. So here's the label. I'm going to make it bigger just in case there are long names typed in there. And that's it, right? Now, in the label, I will say hi. Okay. So this is one part of the application. This is the interaction of the application. So let's see it working. What will happen is that, it'll be typed, and then if I tap and say hi, then a label comes up saying I will say hi. The idea is that instead of I will say hi, I will say hello, and then whatever I typed on the other screen, on the previous screen. But you see that these two are linked. Now remember how I said that this view controller is governed by this viewController.swift class, right? Well, and therefore, because it's governed by this viewController.swift, I can do the following. I can create outlets. So I select this view. I select the intersection here, and you will see that I have the graphics and the class side by side. And I can do something like this. Control drag this text view over to here, and I will create what's called an outlet. This text view, I'm going to give it the name my name and connect. And this has created a variable called my name of type UI text field that will allow me to manipulate the contents of this. I don't need to manipulate the contents of the button. The button is already working and taking me from one screen to the other. So I go back like this. Now I need to manipulate this label now into changing somehow. And to manipulate this label, we see I need a class associated to this view. Okay. So for that, I'm going to create another class here. So I'm going to go click on Segs, right click, new file. It's going to be a Swift class, Swift file. Next, I'm going to create another class here. It's going to say hi view controller. That's Swift. And in this class, I'm not going to import foundation. What I'm going to do is import UI kit, which is what all the classes that I need to actually work in iOS. and I'm going to create a class called say hi. Whoops, I'm just going to name it like the file, or no, say hi view controller, say hi view controller, and this class is going to extend the UI view controller. Okay. For now, I will have a tiny method here, a tiny function. It's going to say print me, and we'll basically just print I am a say hi view controller. Okay, so just a tiny method here, and save it. Now let's go back to my storyboard. So remember, the problem was I need someone to control this guy. I need a view controller to control this view. So I click on the view, I have it right there, right? I have it right there, and you can click on the yellow thing, wherever, and then click on this ID card right next to the attribute inspector. This is the identity inspector. And this will ask me, well, what's the class that's going to control this view? So from here, I select my say hi view controller, which will be there because it extends a view controller. Okay. And then we now have someone who controls this guy. So if I click in here, you'll see that this is governed by the say hi view controller. So now, if I do this intersection here, it will show me the graphics and the new class that's associated to it, the say hi view controller, and I can actually control drag from the label into the class and create an outlet, which is going to be greeting. So this creates a variable greeting of type UI label that I can manipulate. Okay. Okay, so I am halfway there. So I can go from one screen to the other, and I have view controllers to manipulate the contents of the text label and the text field and the label. What I need to do now is when I tap say hi, to pass that information, the name here, to pass it into this class and change this content. You do this by utilizing a method. When a seg is called, when I tap on say hi, this seg is called, this transition is called, okay? But before the transition actually finishes happening, a method is called, a method called prepare for seg is called. So what we're going to do is we're going to override this method. Override the method prepare for seg. Okay? Now remember, look where I overrode it, in the view controller, that's calling the action. Okay, my first screen. So when the seg is activated, when it's in transition, it's going to call this method prepared for seg, and then it's going to continue the transition and create the new view and initialize and display it and load it. Okay, so in my prepare for seg, what I can do is one more thing here. What I can do is the following. I forgot one quick thing. In my main storyboard, I want to give this seg, I click on the seg, and I want to give it a name. I go to the attributes inspector right here, and I'm going to give it an identifier, say hi. That's my identifier for the seg. Let's go back to the view controller that controls that. In the prepare for seg code, because many things can trigger different segs, I want to filter the one that I'm focusing on. So I will say the following: if the seg that's been passed dot identifier is say hi, which is what I call the seg, then do a bunch of things that are related to the one seg. And look at this, I can create a variable, okay, say hi, okay, that's going to be the seg dot destination view controller. This is the view controller where the seg is going to, okay? So I can have the destination, the seg destination view controller, and I can cast it to a say hi view controller because I know that it's going to be a say hi view controller, right? So I'll cast it to a say hi view controller. And then in this variable sh, I can call the print me method. So let's run this to see what happens, okay? Okay, so if I tap on say hi, the label comes up. But more interestingly, my console said I am a say hi view controller, so the print me method was called. So now you know how to transition from one screen to the other, and you can start calling methods and functions on the destination view controller. Now, there's something really important to remember here. When the seg is triggered, when the prepared for seg is called, the class that governs this view is created, but all the graphical components are not displayed, they're not even initialized. Okay, so this means that if I go to my say hi view controller.swift, I cannot just say the greeting text just as I would, because the greeting variable is still null. The UI label is null. It hasn't been initialized. Okay, so what I need to do in order to overcome that is to create another string variable called, for example, name. Okay, variable name, and initialize it to nothing. Okay, variable name is going to be a string initialized to nothing, and then and then somehow I can access this name and pass it to the label. Okay, so instead of print me, what I can do is say, yeah, so the variable name, right? So what I will do now is in my view controller here, instead of print me, I can say sh.name is going to be equal to myname.text. Remember, my name is the UI text field. Okay, so myname.text, and because this can be null, I have to unwrap it. Okay, so I have set the name variable in my say hi view controller class. The next step is to do the following. I'm going to override the view did load function. Okay, first I'm going to call self super view did load. I'll call that so that the view loads and everything is fine. And then what I will do now, when view did load is called, then greeting has been initialized. So then I can say greeting.text equals name. So let's try it. So I'm going to enter a name here. So for example, John, and I'll tap and say hi, and it says John, right? So it actually works. Actually, this should be hi, and then the name. There you go. That's what it should have been. So let's run it again, and this is the final run. I type a name here, Linda, say hi, and this will say hi Linda. So remember, segs move components from one screen to the other. You cannot, on the destination view controller, you cannot just set the graphical components right off the bat. You want to say set an auxiliary variable that you will use then in your view did load to actually set the graphic components.